This story doesn't start with violence, it starts with confidence. Someone thinks they're smarter than everyone else. They lock the door. They turn out the light, they go to sleep, that's the mistake. So everyone was laughing their heads off at the miller's story about the carpenter. Well, almost everyone. There was one man who didn't find it funny at all. That was Oswald the Reeve. You see, Oswald was a carpenter by trade before he became a manager of an estate. He was old, a bit bitter, and he took the miller's joke personally. He starts grumbling. He tells the group, I could pay him back, you know. I could tell a story about a dirty miller that would blur his vision a bit. But I'm old, my grass time is over, I'm just dry fodder now. My heart is as moldy as my white hair. He goes on a bit about being an old man. He compares himself to a leek white head but a green tail. Meaning, even though his body is old and weak, his desire for folly is still very much alive. He says we old men still have 4 hot coals left in our ashes: lying, boasting, anger, and greed. But the host cuts him off. He says, why are you preaching? We've got a long ride, tell your story. So Oswald straightens his hood and says, all right. Force against force. Since this drunk miller told a story about a fooled carpenter, I'm going to tell you one about a miller. And I hope he breaks his neck. Here is how the tale goes. Let's head to Trumpington, not far from Cambridge. There's a brook there and a bridge, and standing right on that brook is a mill. And the miller who lived there, Simpkin was his name. He was as proud as a peacock. You wouldn't want to mess with this guy. He could wrestle, he could fish, and he was walking armory. He wore a long sword, a dagger, and a small Sheffield knife tucked into his hose. He had a round face, a flat nose, and a skull as bald and shiny as an ape's. He was a bully, nobody dared lay a hand on him or he swore they'd pay for it. On top of that, he was a thief. He stole corn and meal from everyone who ground at his mill. His wife was a piece of work too. She was the daughter of the town parson. Her father had paid a heavy dowry to get her married off to Simpkin because of her noble blood. She'd been raised in a nunnery, actually. She was proud as a magpie. If you saw them on a holy day, Simpkin would be marching in front with his hood wrapped around his head, and she'd be following in a red gown. People called her Dame. And you didn't dare mess with her or Simpkin would cut you. But honestly, she was as nasty as ditch water. She looked down on everyone because of her so-called education. They had a daughter about 20 years old. She was, well, let's say she was built thick. She had a flat nose like her dad, broad hips, round high breasts, but beautiful fair hair. The parson wanted to leave all his property to her, provided she married into a family with good ancestry. Now this miller Simpkin had a sweet deal. He ground all the wheat and malt for a big college nearby, Solar Hall at Cambridge. One day, the steward of the college, the manciple, got very sick. Everyone thought he was going to die, so Simpkin saw his chance. He started stealing outrageously. Before, he just took a little off the top, now he was robbing them blind. The warden of the college complained, but the miller just puffed up his chest and denied it. There were 2 young, poor scholars living at that college. John and Aline, they were from the north, a town called Strother. They were headstrong, full of energy, and ready for a laugh. They begged the warden to let them take the corn to the mill themselves. They bet their necks they could watch the corn grind and stop the miller from stealing even half a peck. The warden finally agreed. So Aline and John loaded the sack on a horse and marched down to the mill with their swords and bucklers. John drops the sack at the mill and says, "Hey, Simpkin. How's your lovely daughter and your wife?" Simpkin says, "Welcome, guys." "What are you doing here?" "Need has no equal," John says. "We have to grind our own corn today. Our manciple is on his last legs, so just speed us up so we can get home." Simpkin agrees, but he's smiling to himself. He thinks, these scholars think they're so smart. I'll cheat them right under their noses. The more tricks they try, the more I'll steal. While the boys are setting up, John standing right by the hopper to watch the corn go in and Aline standing underneath to watch the meal come out, Simpkin slips outside. He spots their horse tied up behind the mill under an arbor. He quietly walks up and strips off the bridle. The horse, now loose, gallops off toward the fen where the wild mares run, shouting wee-hee. Simpkin goes back inside, acts innocent, and grinds their corn. When it's all done and sacked up, John goes outside and realizes the horse is gone. He starts screaming, "Help, our horse is lost, Aline, get out here." The warden's horse is gone. Aline forgets all about the flower and runs out. Which way did he go? The miller's wife laughs and says, "He ran to the fen with the wild mares." "You idiots didn't tie him up tight enough." John and Aline are panicked. They lay down their swords and take off running toward the fen, shouting and cursing. As soon as they're gone, Simpkin laughs. "Foolish scholars," he says. He takes half a bushel of their flour, a huge amount, and gives it to his wife. He tells her to bake it into a cake. Meanwhile, the two poor students are running up and down the fen, yelling, "Stop. Stand still, go whistle, I'll catch him here," but the horse is too fast. They run until it's pitch black night before they finally catch him in a muddy ditch. They walk back to the mill, wet, weary, and miserable, leading the horse. John moans, "We are going to be the laughing stock of the college. The miller tricked us." They find the miller sitting by the fire. It's too late to go home. So they beg him for a place to sleep and offer to pay. The miller smirks, "Well, my house is small, but you guys are college men. Surely you can use your arguments to make a small room feel like a palace." John tries to be polite. "Good point, Simpkin, but listen, we're hungry. Give us some food and drink, and we'll pay you in silver." So the miller sends his daughter into town for ale and bread, and he roasts them a goose. He ties their horse up so it won't escape again, and he sets up a bed for them in his own bedroom. Now you have to picture this room. It's small, there are 3 beds. The miller and his wife are in one, the daughter is in another. And the students are in the third. They are all just 10 or 12 feet apart. They eat and they drink a lot of that strong ale. By midnight, the miller is completely varnished. He's pale, drunk, and talking through his nose. He stumbles to bed. His wife is just as jolly and drunk, light as a jaybird. She puts the baby's cradle right at the foot of her bed so she can rock it in the night. The daughter goes to bed, and finally Aline and John crash in their bed. Soon the whole family is asleep. And the noise, the miller is snorting like a horse. His wife is snoring so loud she's providing the bass line. Even the daughter is snoring. Aline lies there poking John. "John," he whispers. "Are you awake? Listen to this symphony. I can't sleep with this thunder. But you know what? If I can't sleep, I'm going to have some fun. The miller stole our corn. The law says if you are harmed in one way, you should be relieved in another. Since he stole my flour, I'm going to steal his daughter's affection. I'm going for it," John warns him. "Be careful, Aline. Simpkin is a dangerous man. If he wakes up, he'll crush us." "I don't count him as a fly," Aline says. He creeps out of bed and gets in with the daughter. She's sleeping so soundly she doesn't notice until it's too late to scream. And, well, shortly to say they were at one. Now John is lying there alone, feeling sorry for himself. He thinks, "This is a wicked joke. My friend is having the time of his life, getting revenge, and I'm lying here like a sack of chaff. Everyone will call me a fool. I need to take a risk too. Nothing ventured, nothing gained." He gets up quietly. He goes to the foot of the miller's bed, picks up the cradle, and moves it softly to the foot of his own bed. A little later, the wife wakes up. She has to use the bathroom. She goes out, does her business, and comes back. She gropes around in the dark for her bed, feeling for the cradle. But the cradle isn't there. She thinks, "Oh my goodness, I almost went into the student's bed. I would have been in big troubles." She keeps feeling along the wall until she finds the cradle. Since the cradle is at the foot of John's bed, she assumes that's her bed. She climbs in, thinking John is her husband. She lies down, and John jumps on the opportunity. He gives her a night she hasn't had in years. They are busy until dawn. So the morning comes. The rooster crows. Aline, exhausted from his night with the daughter, whispers to her, "Farewell, sweetie. I have to go." The daughter, Malkin, is almost crying. She says, "Goodbye, my love. But listen, as you leave, check behind the mill door. There's a cake made from the half bushel of meal my father stole from you. I helped him steal it." Aline is grateful. He gets up, planning to crawl back into bed with John. But remember, John moved the cradles. Aline feels his way in the dark. He finds the cradle and thinks, "Oops, that's the miller's bed." So he goes to the other bed, which is actually the miller's bed, and climbs in. He grabs the sleeping miller by the neck, thinking it's John, and shakes him. "Wake up, you pig's head, listen to this noble game. I've been with the miller's daughter all night, what have you been doing?" The miller wakes up roaring, "What, you false traitor? You dirty clerk, you dare abuse my daughter who comes from noble lineage. I'll kill you." He grabs a lion by the throat, a lion punches him in the nose, and blood starts streaming. They tumble out of bed, wrestling on the floor like two pigs in a sack. They roll around until the miller trips on a stone and falls backward, right onto his wife, who is sleeping in John's bed. She wakes up screaming, "Help, the devil is falling on me. Help, Simkin, these clerks are fighting." John wakes up, panics, and starts groping along the wall for a weapon. The wife stands up, knowing the room better than he does, and grabs a heavy staff. Just then the moon shines through a hole in the walls. The wife sees the two men fighting on the floor. She sees a white blur. Now a lion was wearing his white nightcap. She thinks the white thing is one of the clerks. She raises the staff, swings with all her might, and smack. She hits the miller right on his bald skull. He goes down crying, "Help, I'm dying." A lion and John don't waste a second. They beat the miller up while he's down, put their clothes on, grab their horse, their ground meal, and the cake from behind the door, and they get out of there. So the proud miller was well beaten. He lost his grinding fees, he paid for the supper of the men who beat him, and his wife and daughter were, well, thoroughly entertained. As the proverb says, he who does evil shouldn't expect good. A cheater will always be cheated himself, and that, my friends, is how the Reeve paid back the miller. And so the night ends, as many stories do, with pride humbled and the clever undone by their own tricks. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this tale, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more stories like this.